There are hundreds of basic and alternate recipes in Satisfactory 1.0. Some of them are absolutely amazing, whilst others not so much. So I've made it my mission in Satisfactory to compare every single recipe in the game to inform you guys on what the best and worst recipes are. So welcome to the best recipes in Satisfactory 1.0 series. Today's video is all about the assembly director system of Phase 4 Space Elevator part, and it's produced right here in the assembler. And to make it, we are actually going to need another space elevator part called the adaptive control unit. If you didn't see our video about the adaptive control units, do not worry, I'll be covering all of that again in today's video since it's rather relevant to the assembly director system. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video, where today we are going to be producing 2.5 assembly director systems. But why 2.5? Why not 1? Why not 10? But it's purely for the reason that 2.5 assembly director systems produces 10 biochemical sculptors, so it makes this next stage of the project assembly line nice and simple to mathematically do, which makes my life a lot easier. So what do we need to make our 2.5 assembly director systems? Well, we are going to need 5 adaptive control units, which again I've already covered, and 2.5 supercomputers. How bad can it be? Let's speedrun the adaptive control units. We are going to need 10 computers per minute, as well as 25 circuit boards, 5 heavy modular frames, and lastly 25 automated wiring. I love this recipe because it involves just iron and a tad bit of water, which is not too bad, and our heavy modular frame recipe is also really good here as well, because again we are only consuming limestone and iron, which again I think is very helpful. I mean, literally our encased industrial beam recipe is these first 2 recipes combined, and then our modular frame recipe just requires iron, so logistically one of the best recipes in the game to make. Then of course we've got our 25 circuit boards, which is nice and simple. You don't have to make steamed copper sheets and pure copper ingots, but it just heavily reduces the amount of copper that you need, which personally I love. And a little bit of silica there, it's not too bad. Then to make our 10 computers, we are going to need 5 crystal oscillators that require raw quartz and iron, which again, fantastic. And lastly, we need those circuit boards, which I've just previously covered. That is essentially the adaptive control units, very quickly summarized, but I do highly recommend checking out that dedicated video I released just a few days ago for a lot more information and recipe breakdowns. To make our 2.5 supercomputers, we are going to need 7 regular computers, which is the exact same recipe that I've used over here, except this time we need 7.5 rather than 10. But as you can probably see, you can make quite a lot of this in the very same factory, so it's nice to do logistically as well, which I quite like. We're also going to need 25 batteries, 63 wire, and lastly 2.5 electromagnetic control rods, which is where we are going to start off. Firstly, we need an additional 3.75 stators, because we're already using stators in this recipe, and that's over here to make the 25 automated wiring for the adaptive control unit. We're also going to need 2.5 AI limiters to make our 2.5 electromagnetic control rods, and we are using our steamed copper sheet alternate recipes, which I absolutely love, and we are using this quickwire recipe right here. The reason I'm using this is to save on dozens. I mean, overall I'm probably saving on a good couple thousand Caterium in my playthrough because of this recipe. It does mean that I have to consume some more copper, but because I'm using pure copper ingots, that's completely fine. And of course, we are using pure Caterium ingots here as well. So we're using 2 alternate recipes, which massively help with our Caterium. And just like that, those are your 2.5 electromagnetic control rods. I don't think there should be any dramas with this recipe. Stators are nice and easy to do. AI limiters, if you want to, set up some sort of electronics factory, because a lot of these electronics have got very similar resources that they are needing, so feel free to do that if you so wish. That's what I'll be doing. Moving on to our 63 wire, I'm going to spend no longer than 10 seconds talking about this, because I'm using something called iron wire. Moving on now to our 25 batteries. And I'm aware there are a couple battery recipes that you could go with. Now there's 2 different ways to make your batteries. The first way involves sulfuric acid, alumina solution, and aluminium casing. This is not too bad if you want to consume a bunch of aluminium. It's okay. You do also make some water as a byproduct, but personally this is not for me. Instead, I've chosen the classic battery, which despite its name is actually an alternate recipe, which just uses sulfur, alclad aluminium sheets, plastic, and wire. If I'm completely honest, both of these recipes are fine. I have got a dedicated video talking about batteries if you would like to make up your mind whilst watching that. As this is the recipe I have opted for. If it was bad, I wouldn't have chosen it. Starting with our 44 alclad aluminium sheets, and again, regular viewers of the channel know I don't like talking about aluminium, so I'm very quickly gonna just speed run through this, but essentially, sloppy solution, fantastic for saving bauxite and water. Electrode scrap, fantastic for using your leftover petroleum coke, which you might have from previous projects like I did, but you can always use the cold variants. It's up to you. You can then use your polymer resin to make plastic or to make fiber, whatever you feel like, but do bear in mind, you have got water as a byproduct, so do make sure to use this somehow in your project. If this overflows, then you are going to be in big trouble. No aluminium scrap means no aluminium ingots. No ingots, then no sheets. No sheets, then no batteries. No batteries, no supercomputers. No supercomputers, no assembly director systems. Not to mention, if you're using batteries to make vehicles, the last thing that you want to happen is that you stop making batteries. This means that your drones and other vehicles won't be able to work, so yeah, do try to use your water for something. I know it's a very minor thing, but still good to know. And again, 75 wire, not even going to talk about it, we've already addressed it. Now, when it comes to plastic, I don't recommend this recipe. What I do recommend, though, is essentially turning your rubber plus fuel into plastic. Then if you really wanted to, you can then use that plastic with more fuel to then turn that back into rubber. This essentially means that you can get a bunch of plastic and rubber throughout your factory, which is pretty good, but you do get some heavy oil residue if you decide to do this particular recipe. And the final thing that you then need is a little bit of sulfur. And those are your batteries. How about our computers? Well, again, I've already gone over computers both in our last video and a little bit earlier on today. Quartz crystals, cable, reinforced iron plates, and of course our circuit boards up there as well. This is not a bad recipe, and honestly, I do recommend it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have included it in today's video. So that is the recipe, but now it's time to analyze the resources required, the machines required, as well as the total power consumption that this entire factory is going to need. Starting with those resources, we are going to need 1,229.5 water per minute, 1,255 iron, 161 limestone, 45 bauxite, 256 raw quartz, 65.4 copper ore, 4.5 crude oil, 37.5 sulfur, and 8.4 caterium. Now, when it comes to things like our caterium, sulfur, crude oil, copper, bauxite, limestone, and probably even raw quartz, we are hardly consuming anything. So, in regards of all of that, fantastic stuff. When it comes to water, though, we are consuming a pretty decent amount, but like I constantly say throughout these videos, if you don't consume that water, everything that you see here is going to, rather dramatically in some instances, massively increase. And then lastly, our 1,255 iron, that's completely fine. Besides, 500 of those iron ore is coming just from our automated wiring recipe, which again, I'm still going to back because I think logistically it's actually quite fun to make, and it's not going to require that much time at all, so I'm still backing it. So those were the resources, now it's time for the machines. We need 9 manufacturers consuming 435 megawatts, 66 assemblers consuming 827 megawatts, 72 refineries consuming 1,679 megawatts, 130 constructors consuming 486 megawatts, only one blender at 63 megawatts, and 2 smelters at 6 megawatts. So what's our total power consumption looking like? Honestly, this kind of shocked me a little bit. It's only 3,496. This is a lot lower than I thought it would be. And I know it's only 2.5 assembly director systems, and 1,500 megawatts per assembly director system might sound like quite a lot, but this is quite a late stage item. This is phase 4 of the space elevator. So the fact you can make 2.5 of them for a very little megawatt consumption is pretty decent. So what does that mean for our biochemical sculptor, the next item in our space elevator part that then requires the assembly director system? Does this consume a lot of power? Well, you're going to have to find out in the next episode. Just kidding, no you don't. It doesn't consume a lot of power, it's actually pretty good, and I do recommend watching it because it's surprising. It surprised me at least. Don't worry, I was not going to leave you on the cliffhanger, but essentially that is it for today's video. Now, the good thing about the biochemical sculptor video is that we've essentially analyzed the majority of that recipe today. So if you do want to watch that video, I will leave a timestamp when it comes out that you can just flick to then see the next stage of that space elevator part, which again makes your life a bit easier, and it saves you about like 8 minutes worth of your time, which I think is pretty decent. But regardless, thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing. Feel free to come back to that video if you so wish. And I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.